Have you ever wondered if you could wander from Ruidoso, New Mexico to Roswell, New Mexico during the 1800s? Join me and we'll see beautiful landscapes of the Old West, including horses, old towns, and mesmerizing blue skies that once were home to Billy the Kid and other famous cowboys. Along the way, I will tell you a story about a girl I met who called me creepy. The outcome may surprise you. Here we are at the Rio Bonito, a small river where our horses and we could drink water. Have you noticed the trees to the right have no leaves this time of year? Or how the hillside to the left looks brown, almost gray? How about how the sky above it all is a brilliant blue, without a cloud in sight? As you see the trees and hillside melt away, and new things come into view. Can you imagine what this place must have looked like before cars or paved roads existed? What would the air smell like? What sounds could you hear? If we were riding horses, how would your body feel different? Perhaps you would feel the warmth of the sun on your face, or the gentle breeze rippling through your hair. It feels good to imagine these things, doesn't it? Have you noticed what town we are in? It's Hondo. Rio Bonito and Rio Ruidoso join here, and form Rio Hondo. Now there are more trees, on both sides of the road. We're almost out of the mountains, but there are hills ahead in the distance. Have you noticed any clouds yet? Did you see the horses? Maybe you could just wonder if any of those horses might be a descendant of Billy the Kid's horse. It's possible, isn't it? As we ride along, I wonder if you can spot 4 things that don't leave the view. Now, can you focus on just 3? And now, just 2. Finally, focus on one thing you can see. Comment what was the one thing you focused on. Now imagine 4 pleasant sounds you can hear as we ride along. Now pick 3 of them. And now just pick 2 sounds. Finally, pick just 1 sound to focus on. This sound is most pleasant, isn't it? Because it has to be. My voice was one of the sounds in your mind, wasn't it? That's good. Those pine trees are very green compared to the hillsides. Still no clouds in sight. The hills ahead are much closer now. I bet you could imagine 4 pleasing scents you can notice now. Maybe the crisp, clean air of the outdoors. Or the scent of the horses. Think of only 3 of them now. And now, focus on only 2. Finally, focus on just 1 pleasing scent. As you notice everything about this scent, you realize what it is. and how strong, or subtle, it is. And maybe you wonder why your mind chose this pleasant scent to focus on. Don't worry, you don't have to do anything but relax and enjoy the ride. Since you are enjoying the journey so far, perhaps you have already subscribed for more journeys to come. The shadows of the trees, and sunlight between them, causes a flickering sensation as we ride past. Did you notice the bird that just flew in front of us? I wonder what kind it was. At the beginning of this journey, I promised to tell you a story. I once talked to a girl who I had seen a few times, going the opposite direction from me. "Hello," I said. A funny look crossed her face, and she replied,
You're creepy."
"No, I'm not. But you may be projecting."
Are you really calling me creepy now?
"No. But I wonder what must be in your mind to cause you to think of me as creepy."
Well, now that you mention it, I'm not sure.
I have seen you a few times before on this path. I'm sure you have noticed me as well.
Yes, I have noticed you, but you don't just say hello to people.
I say hello to people often. It's called being friendly.
It's called creepy if she has a boyfriend.
How am I supposed to know if you have a boyfriend without saying hello? I saw her brow wrinkle and thought, then before she could answer, I said, "Are you happy?" I am just a stranger, so there's no risk in answering. I watched her consider the question, to which she finally replied,
Nobody is entirely happy.
"That's true. However, are you mostly happy in your relationship?"
Some things could improve. But that's none of your business anyway.
That's true. But do you wonder if this may be related to calling me creepy? I watched her ponder this idea, then after a moment I said, "The day is bright and sunny. There are no clouds in the sky. Birdsong fills our ears. And I could not resist saying hi this time as you walked by." Her eyes looked down. Her feet shuffled a bit. New color rose in her cheeks. And just a hint of a smile turned the corners of her lips. After a moment, she looked up again and looked deep into my eyes, then asked,
Why did you have to say hi?
"Because I am looking for a wife," I replied. "And now that I know you have a boyfriend, I shall say goodbye." Her eyes fell, and her little smile faded. Then, I asked her, "Now that we have shared words, may I offer a farewell hug?" She nodded approval, without looking up. I stepped closer, within her space, and opened my arms. After a moment or two, she took the final step. I wrapped my arms around her, and she nestled her face in my shoulder. I said, more softly now, "You deserve happiness. If the day ever comes, that you decide you need something different. Then you will stop to talk to me again. Until then, I look forward to saying hi as we pass each other by. Eventually, I felt a slight nod against my shoulder. We stepped apart, shared a smile, and continued our separate ways down the path of life. The story of the girl who called me creepy does not end here. There is at least one more chapter. But first, let's take a look at where we are now. Further along the trail. Is your horse ready for a drink? Mine is. There will be water near those trees ahead. Can you imagine how clean the mountain water must have tasted all those years ago? If you look hard, you can find some still today. When you find the clean, pure water, always fill all your canteens. For the way is hard, and the journey is long. Since you've enjoyed this journey, and this story, so far, I bet you can think of some ways to share it with people you care about. Now, the trees are smaller, shorter, more like shrubs. And that sky still holds no clouds ahead. What a beautiful sight. Something for which to be grateful. Would you like to hear the next part of the story? Good. Time passed. It may have been weeks or months. I saw the girl once in a while along the path. And each time I saw her, I smiled and said, "Hello." She also smiled and replied,
"Hello."
And so it continued. For months. Or maybe weeks. Then, one bright and sunny day, much like our day ahead of us, she smiled, and instead of saying hello, she asked,
"May I speak with you?" For a moment,
I stopped, looked into her eyes, and replied, "Do you still have a boyfriend?"
"Yes, I do."
"Then, I cannot talk at this time."
"Please, it is only one question."
After thinking for a moment, I agreed.
What would you do if I no longer had boyfriend?
Look into my eyes, I said. I would ask you out for a date, and we would spend time together, enjoying something that you love to do. However, I must ask, are you now more or less happy?
A bit of both, I think. I look at the world differently. But my boyfriend does not want what I want.
What do you want?
To get married and have children with a good man who is not always angry.
Do you love him?
I do love him very much.
I thought for a moment, then said, I have an idea, if you're not afraid.
I am not afraid.
I watched the girl for a moment, then said, tell him you met me, and tell him what I told you.
And then what?
Just watch and notice what happens. She smiled and nodded. I took a step forward and opened my arms, and she came in for a farewell hug. Then, the hug ended, and we both continued on our way down the path of life. You probably already guessed it. The story of the girl who called me creepy is still not over. But, look. What do you see now? We have left the mountains of Ruidoso, and there are no trees, and there are no hills in the distance. The horizon is quite flat. Are you enjoying the journey? Are you enjoying the story? That is good. Do you enjoy the cloudless sky? Good, so do I. Look at the lone tree. Quite a sight. Have you wondered yet if Billy the Kid was in this place and in a fight? Well, what do you suppose might happen next? In the story of the girl who once upon a time called me creepy, I told her to tell her boyfriend. Will he want to fight? Weeks passed. Then, months. Or maybe just days. It seemed to me that I saw the girl less frequently. And when I did, she seemed more and more distant, disconnected, and dismayed. I hoped for the best, but prepared for the worst. One day, I had nearly forgotten. I was eating lunch in a restaurant when shouting began. On the other side, I looked over and saw the girl seated at a table where the shouting man was standing. He was shouting and pointing at me. The girl covered her face with her hands. The man was tall and strong, and his face was red. But his words were all jumbled up. I nodded at him and pulled out a chair at my table. After a moment, his mouth closed, and he began to walk over. When he arrived, I said, "Hello. Won't you please sit down?" Without moving, he replied,
"No, why don't you step outside with me instead?"
I examined him for a moment, then said, "All right, I will, if you will answer one question first."
"What question?"
I paused, then finally asked, "How do you train your mind?" Before he could answer, I continued, "You clearly train your body well. But your mind, how do you train it?"
Weird question from a weirdo.
Do you have an answer?
No.
If it is worthwhile to train the body, isn't it also worthwhile to train the mind? The expression on his face changed a bit, as he thought. While awaiting a reply, I glanced over at the girl across the room. Her hands no longer covered her face, and her eyes were open wide.
You asked my girlfriend on a date.
I looked back at the man, then said, "No, I told her I would ask her out if she no longer had a boyfriend."
That's just as bad. Now, come outside.
After a moment, I said, "Can you imagine how your life might change if you began to train your mind with as much effort as you train your body?" The man's eyes looked up as he began to wonder. I looked back toward the girl's table and noticed she had moved closer and was watching her boyfriend with a hint of a smile.
Well, what are you implying?
I looked back at the man, then said, "If you don't intentionally train your own mind, then someone else will, without you realizing it." His eyes narrowed, and finally he nodded.
Okay, I will sit down.
And so the story ends. The story of the girl who once called me creepy. And so also ends our journey today. From Ruidoso to Roswell. Thank you for joining me. Please join me again for another journey to wander as we wonder at this beautiful life and place we all share.